What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to do another full story video. Now, a full story video is when I sit down, take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching storyline and combine them together into one big video. Now, for today's full story video, it's going to be over Fall of the Mutants once again. Except this time, it's going to be over the New Mutants chapters. Let me explain. So when it came to Fall of the Mutants, it was the second X-Men event. But it wasn't like your usual X-Men event, where you would have all the different X-Men teams cross over to handle one particular enemy. Instead, each team had to handle their own kinds of problems. You see, when it came to X-Factor, they had to deal with Apocalypse. When it came to the X-Men, well, they had to deal with the Adversary. And when it came to the New Mutants, well, they had to handle the Animator and also the death of Cypher, which was a pretty big blow for the New Mutants. Now, their chapters weren't really as big as X-Factor nor the X-Men, but it was still big at the time for an X-Men title because you are talking about the idea of the death of a certain hero. But either way, here is Fall of the Mutants, the New Mutants chapters only. I do hope you enjoy. Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men as we work our way up to the Fall of the Mutant storyline, we do pick up with New Mutants number 47, 48, and 49. Now, this is a three-part story arc that comes right after the Mutant Massacre event. And the reason why, because remember, when it came to the New Mutants, they only had one chapter in the entire Mutant Massacre crossover. And the reason why, because at the end of their chapter, they were teleported away over to Limbo. And the reason why, because they were being chased after by a character known as Magus. Now, when it comes to Magus, he is a technarch. And when it comes to technarchs, they're better known as techno-organic beings. Now, when it comes to Magus, at this point in time in Marvel Comics, he was known as the most powerful technarch on his home world. Now, the reason why he was chasing after the New Mutants, because of his son Warlock, who's also a technarch, because on their home world, when the time comes for the child to prove that he is worthy enough to replace their parent, they have to kill off their parent. And so when it came to Magus, he felt like it was time for Warlock to see if he was worthy. It was time for Warlock to try to kill off his father. Now, Warlock did not like that idea at all. And so he ran back over to Earth and hid with the New Mutants. And over time, you would have Magus appear and try his best to grab his son and take his son back over to their home world. But almost every single time, he fails. And so when it came to the tail end of New Mutants number 46, right in the middle of the Mutant Massacre crossover, Magus appeared, but Magik, the younger sister of Colossus, was able to use her powers to teleport the team over to Limbo. Now, as we dive into today's storyline, we see our heroes in Limbo, but I do want to mention one thing. When it comes to Limbo, around this point in time in Marvel Comics, this was still a new concept. Yes, you did have a lot of different Marvel Comics use Limbo, but the thing was, it was still kind of new. And when it comes to Magik, she's still learning a lot about Limbo. Now, when our heroes arrive, the only person to wake up is Sunspot. The rest of the team is knocked out cold. Now, when he does wake up, he sees that they are surrounded by a bunch of demons of Limbo. Now, he does get very concerned, and the reason why, because these demons are ignoring him and the rest of the team. they're going after Magik. And the reason why, because around this point in time, she was technically the ruler of Limbo. Either way, they grab her, and you have Sunspot wondering what in the world could be going on. What are they planning to do to her? But we kind of find out that they were just trying to heal her up, because she is the ruler of Limbo around this time in Marvel Comics, and so they want to make sure that she is okay. Now, once she is healed up, she's then able to help out the rest of the team and get everybody back on their feet. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they do remember that they were trying to get away from Magus, because he is a very powerful character, a character you cannot take so lightly. Now, with all that being said, though, while you have our heroes wondering what is their next step, well, they realize they were unable to escape Magus, that he actually followed them into Limbo. Now, this battle does not take that long, and the reason why, because our heroes realize they really can't do anything at all when it comes to fighting against Magus. He's a very powerful techno-organic being, and literally he has the ability to infect you so easily. If he touches you, it's game over. And so for our heroes, they realize that their powers may hold him back for a short period of time, but sooner or later, he's going to be able to grab them and then most likely kill them to get to his son Warlock. Now, as the battle goes on, you have Magik say, listen, I was able to gather up enough energy to open up another portal to hopefully teleport us out of here and in somewhere safe. Now, the story does shift over to Magneto and Moira. Now again, this takes place right after the Mutant Massacre event. And remember, around this time, Moira went over to the school of Charles Xavier to help out the X-Men and the New Mutants take care of any survivors of that event. Now again, the New Mutants had disappeared, and the X-Men are currently handling their own set of problems. Now, around this time, Charles Xavier was not the headmaster of the school. It was actually Magneto, because around this time, Marvel took the character and was trying to turn into a good guy, and so he became the leader of the school, and he was actually the teacher for the New Mutants. Now, when it comes to Moira, she is very worried about the New Mutants, because at the end of their chapter of the Mutant Massacre, to the world, they just had disappeared. No one knows where in the world they went to. We know, but they don't know. And so when it comes to Magneto, yes, he is worried, but he does have faith in his students. He believes that sooner or later, they should be able to get back here safe and sound. Now, getting back over to the New Mutants, we kind of find out that they have arrived back on Earth, except they have arrived in the past. And what I mean by that is they have arrived in ancient Scotland. Now, at first, our heroes, they don't know that. To them, it's just Earth, except out of nowhere, they do see some Scottish knights trying to get away from some English knights. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they go out of their way to help out the Scottish knights, because it seemed they were in more trouble than the other group. Now, once our heroes are able to defeat the Englishmen, they go talk to the leader of the Scottish men. Now, when it comes to our heroes, this is the moment they realize that they are in ancient Scotland, because the leader of this group is an ancient king that they have studied in the present day, and that would be Robert the Bruce. Now, I'm not going to sit down and try to talk a lot about Robert the Bruce, and the reason why, because This is his only appearance ever in Marvel Comics. Now, when it comes to Robert, he's very grateful of what the New Mutants were able to do, that they were able to protect him. Now, he does take them in so they are able to, rest up and eat some food. But while you have everybody talking, that is when you have Robert realize that this team of mutants are on the run. They're running away from their enemy. Now, we know who. That would be Magus. But for him, he has no idea who that person is. But when it comes to their conversation, he begins to motivate them, saying, listen, you guys cannot just always run away, because sooner or later that option right there will be taken away, and then you are gonna have to fight back. But the question is, will you be ready to fight back, or will you not be ready to fight back, and will you die? And so it's him saying you just have to face your problems head on, but at the same time be cautious. Now, when it comes to our heroes, once they do hear that, they realize that maybe he is right. To go back to Limbo, try to get back to Earth, and then think of a game plan to get rid of Magus. Now, they use Warlock, Magus' son, to see if Magus is still in Limbo. And he tells the team, no, he is gone, so we should be able to use Limbo to get back to our time. And so they begin to use the powers of magic once again, hoping to get back to the present day. I'm going to tell you right now, they don't. Matter of fact, they end up into the far future, an alternate future that's well known to the readers of Marvel Comics. And so we then picked up with New Mutants number 48. Now, with this issue, we do pick up with 4 mutants who are apparently stuck in the future. And that would be Sunspot, Magma, Karma, and also Wolfbane. Now, the reason why these 4 characters are the only ones stuck in the future is because when it came to Magik and she was trying to get everyone back to the present day, something happened and the group got separated. And so these 4 got stuck in the future. Now, we kind of find out that they are currently in the days of future past. Now, this was a timeline that was originally introduced back in Uncanny X-Men number 141 and 142. And that timeline right there, the Sentinels had won. They were able to kill off most of the mutants and kill off all the superheroes who weren't mutants. Now, they also were able to take over North America as well. It was a very dark future. Now, at first, we were led to believe that that was going to be the for sure future of the Marvel timeline. Now, of course, thanks to comics and really superheroes, that timeline right there is no longer going to be the for sure future. It's now an alternate future. But when it comes to our 4 heroes in this storyline, they had just arrived in another version of the days of future past. And so this future is not the same one we saw in Uncanny X-Men number 141 and 142. This is a whole brand new one that's just very similar to the other one. Now, with that being said, while you have our heroes realize that North America has been wrecked, that most of the mutants have been killed off, well, that is the moment where they are attacked by some Sentinels. Now, when it comes to this battle, it's not really fair for our heroes. And the reason why, because most of our heroes, they have abilities that will give them the chance to actually win against a giant robot, like Magma or even Sunspot. But characters like Wolfbane, at this point in time, was not in the best position to fight against a giant robot. Now, luckily for our heroes, 2 future versions of their friends had just arrived to save the day, to help them get away from these Sentinels. And that would be Cannonball and also Danny Moonstar. The 2 future versions of those characters had just arrived to help out our New Mutants get away from these Sentinels. Now we do jump back over to the present day where we pick up with Magneto. Now you have Magneto very upset to see how the children were taking care of their rooms. Now guys, remember, when it comes to Magneto, he has faith in the idea that the New Mutants will come back home safely and then he will be able to continue their teachings, their lessons. And so while you have Magneto currently cleaning the rooms up for the New Mutants, well, that is the moment he is confronted by Stevie Hunter. Now, Stevie Hunter was a really big character in the early days of Uncanny X-Men when Chris Claremont took over the title. She appeared in a lot of books. Now, she still does in the present day of Marvel Comics. It's just here and there, like small sprinkles here and there. But either way, when it comes to Stevie, she's also wondering if the New Mutants are okay. Because like we saw earlier, when it came to Moira McTaggart, she was very worried. And so now it's Stevie. They both believe in the idea that maybe the New Mutants might not come back. But for Magneto, he still believes in the idea that they will. Now we do jump back over to our heroes, and when we do, we kind of learn from our heroes about this version of the Days of Future Past. Now we are told that in this future that basically the mutants were blamed for every single thing that went wrong in North America. So for example, there was a really bad drought. That was the mutants' fault. There was a really bad winter. That was the mutants' fault. There was a bad earthquake one year. Again, that was the mutants' fault. But the biggest thing that got the mutants in trouble was the idea that a lot of people believed that most of the mutants in America were actually spies from other countries. And so with all those different things coming together, it led into the launch of the Sentinels, which of course led into this dark future where most of the mutants are killed off. Literally, most of the New Mutants have been killed off as well. Now, this is also the moment where we kind of find out that some of the mutants were able to escape. They were able to be teleported over to a Dyson sphere that's out in space. Now, here's the thing, because when it comes to this Dyson sphere, the only way to get there is to use someone who has the ability to teleport. And that person would be Lila Cheney. Now, when it comes to Lila Cheney, she first appeared in New Mutants Annual number 1. And again, she has the ability to teleport. Now, she's a very powerful teleporter because she's able to teleport across the universe. And so when it comes to Lila Cheney, she's their key to finally get off this earth and go over to that Dyson sphere. But the problem is, she was recently captured by the Sentinels. And so now our heroes, the present day heroes, and the future version of their friends are going to have to work together to finally free Lila, to get her out of there, and to finally leave the earth. Because North America is gone. Their home is gone. Most of their friends are gone. There's no reason for them to stay here. Now, when it comes to Cannonball, he actually has something up his sleeve. Now really, the rest of the book is going to be the New Mutants and also the future version of their friends being able to work together to fight against the Sentinels to get to Lila. Now once they're able to get her, well, we kind of find out that Cannonball does not plan on to bring the New Mutants with him. He plans to leave them on the earth. And the reason why, because he knew that they were going to arrive at that point because Magik would mess up when it comes to teleporting the team back to the present day. And so he knew that all he had to do was take care of our heroes just long enough until Magik will be able to come back for them and take them back to the present day. If Cannonball and Danny Moonstar of the future takes our heroes over to this new place for all the mutants to live at, well then it could possibly ruin the timeline. It could change the future to something even worse. Now when it comes to our heroes, they're also upset about the idea that Cannonball and Danny Moonstar are going to leave the Earth behind. And when it comes to Moonstar, she says, you don't understand that sooner or later, the Sentinels will then come after us as well across the universe. It might take them a few years to actually reach that point, but they are robots. Time to them means nothing. That sooner or later, they're going to have the ability to travel across space to make sure the job is finished. But again, when it comes to the future version of Cannonball and Moonstar, they're saying, you can't come with us. Thank you for helping us to get Lila, but you're going to have to stay here until your present day version of Magik is able to get you and take you guys back to the present day. Now, before we do reach the end of this chapter, we do see our heroes really having no choice but to wait for Magik to come get them. But before they are able to leave, you do have Magna being able to bring up a volcano right in the middle of New York to kind of say, we are going to leave our mark in this future, to kind of have the Sentinels remember who we are. And so now, in this alternate future, there is going to be a volcano right in the middle of New York. And so we do jump over to New Mutants number 49. Now, when we do, we pick up with Cypher, Warlock, Mirage, and Cannonball. Now, when it comes to our 4 characters, they are trapped in an alternate future. In this future, well, mutants are first class and humans are, well, second class. Now, here's the problem, because we are told that when it came to the X-Men and New Mutants, they came together to make sure that Charles' dream came to life, that mutants and humans can live together in harmony. Well, that's not the case, because now you're telling us that the mutants are getting what they deserve, but now humans are being mistreated, because humans are not getting the food they need to survive, the clothes they need to stay warm, the medical help they need to stay alive, to survive. And so right now, it's kind of like, yes, you were able to help the mutants get what they deserve, but now you are mistreating humans. You're not doing Charles Xavier's dream. And so when it comes to our heroes, they hate this future because they realize this is a failed future. And the question is right now, what different points in time led up to this moment, to this future, and how can they prevent it if they are able to go back to the present day? Those are the big questions right now our heroes have. Now, something else I do want to talk about is the children. And what I mean by that is, what happens to humans who have children that are mutants? Well, we kind of find out they're taken away. If you are somebody who has a child that is a mutant, well, the police officers who work for the first class will come out of their way to take your child who is a mutant away from you, no matter what. Even if you are that child's mother, they don't care. They believe the child deserves to have a better life because he is a mutant away from you, who is a human. And that is a huge problem. Now, we actually get an example of that in this storyline, because you do have our heroes going out of their way to save 2 children who are being pulled away by their family. Now, the mom, she is trying her best to fight for her children. She hates the idea of losing them. But when it comes to their father, he didn't care. And the reason why, because we kind of find out he actually sold his kids to make some money, because again, humans are being so mistreated in this future. He's all like, listen, if I can sell my kids to make some money so that we are able to get some good food, get some good clothes, get some medical help, then yeah, I'm going to do that. But our heroes stepped in and said, no, these kids will stay with their mother. Now, we also get introduced to a character in this alternate future, and that would be Katie Power. Now, Katie Power was a character we actually talk about in the Mutant Massacre event. She was part of the Power Pack, a group of children that were given powers by an alien, and they became a group of heroes. Now, with this alternate future, well, she grew up, but she's trying to fight back against the mutants who are causing all these different kinds of problems. And so our heroes are going to work with her. But here comes the next problem though. See, with our heroes stepping in and protecting those children, well, the big boss of this organization in the far future is very upset about the idea that the police officers weren't able to grab the kids they were assigned to grab. And so then you have the officers tell their boss, well, this is the reason why, and showing off different pictures of our heroes to this big boss, who we have no idea who it is. But he is so upset, he wants to put together a special team to go after them and to bring them in. Because we kind of find out there is a group of people who are trying their best to fight back against the mutants, who say humans deserve more than this. Humans and mutants can live together. What you guys are doing is wrong. And so when it comes to the big boss, he feels like that same group is right now working with our heroes. And that is a huge problem. Now, I want to skip over a few pages and actually jump into the point where our heroes have been captured. And the reason why, because they kind of find out who's in charge in this future. And we kind of find out it is Sunspot. A future version of him that turned evil is the reason why this future is basically dark. But we also kind of find out second in charge is Magma. So two evil future version of our heroes is the reason why we have this dark future. Well, really, they're not the reasons why, but they're making sure that everything continues on like it did at the very beginning, the point where mutants took over the world. The main reason why this future exists is because Magneto had built an alliance with the Hellfire Club, and that was enough to begin the process of the mutants to take over the world. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they try to tell Sunspot and Magma what they are doing is wrong, because they are not living up to Charles Xavier's dream. Matter of fact, they are doing a horrible job. But for them, they're saying, listen, what we're doing right now is not that bad. And the reason why, because mutants have been mistreated for so long that they deserve this. And the humans deserve what they have gotten. But again, it's still not Charles Xavier's dream. With all that being said, you do have our heroes being able to break free thanks to Warlock, except they do get recaptured. And the only reason why they broke out in the first place is because they want to make sure that Katie Power gets away, because she's from this time, meaning that if she dies, it could affect the ability of the humans being able to fight back against the mutants. But if our heroes die, then what's the point? Who cares? Because they might go back to the past and begin the process of trying to prevent this future, or the possibility that Magik might come in and save them and again go back in the past to try to prevent this future. But either way, they find out that in this dark future, two of their friends turn evil and then begin to ruin Charles Xavier's dream. And so we jump into the final chapter, New Mutants number 50. Now, when we do, we pick up with Magik, who is currently stuck in Limbo. Now, remember, her goal was to use Limbo as a way to travel back to the present day. But unfortunately, things did not work out like she wanted it. And the reason why, because Limbo has been taken over by Magus. And so now all the different demons of Limbo have turned against her because she was the ruler. But because she left and now Magus was able to take over, she's no longer the ruler. And these demons do not look at her as their queen. They're trying to capture her. Now, that is the moment you do have Magik have the ability to escape, being able to teleport. But the question is right now, where did she go to? We then jump over to the Starjammers. Now, the Starjammers were a group of characters who were, well, technically pirates. Now, the leader of the group was a character known as Corsair. Now, Corsair was, or still is, the father to Cyclops and Havoc. But around this time when it came to the Starjammers, Charles Xavier was part of this team. Let me explain. So, he got seriously injured to the point where he had no choice but to step down as the headmaster of his school, which then let Magneto take over. Now, when it came to the Starjammers, they were able to heal up Charles Xavier, and because of that, he feels like he owes them, and so he has been part of the Starjammers ever since then. But another reason why he is with them is to be with his girlfriend, his big-time lover, Illyandra. Now, with all that being said, you do have the Starjammers currently at a bar, just minding their own business until you have Charles realize there's someone in the bar that he knows very well. He was able to kind of detect their mind, and we come to find out it was Magik. So now we know what happened. After she left Limbo, she came straight over here, looking for the man she calls as her father, Charles Xavier. Now, once you have Charles Xavier being able to grab her and take her back over to the Starjammer ship, you then have Charles Xavier being able to wake her up. Now, once she does wake up, she is so happy to see the man who took her in when she was just a young girl, and that would be Charles Xavier. Now, right after that, you did have Charles being able to read her mind. Now, he has been gone for a short period of time, but in that short period of time, a lot of different things had happened. So, for example, the mutant massacre. And for Charles Xavier, he hated the idea of hearing that there is another evil group of mutants going around trying to rule over the world. And the reason why, because that goes against his dream. The idea of humans and mutants being able to live together as one. Now, when it came to the mutant massacre, he's also learning all the different kinds of serious injuries the X-Men had taken. Because let's not forget, currently right now, 3 members of the X-Men are seriously injured. Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Kitty Pryde. And so for Charles Xavier, hearing all of this, you're left to believe that he might come back to Earth, take back over to school so that the X-Men, the new mutants, will be able to actually do a better job, to train the teams in a better way. Now, when it comes to Charles, he has no idea that Jean Grey is alive. He has no idea his original 5 X-Men have came back together to make X-Factor. So that could be a very interesting moment. But right after that, you didn't have Charles being able to work with Magik to go to the 2 different alternate timelines to save all her friends, the rest of the new mutants. Now, this is a great moment for Charles Xavier. And the reason why, because he's now being able to travel to 2 completely different kinds of futures. Where one future, the mutants had basically failed. They all have been killed off. And North America is being ruled by the Sentinels. And that would be the days of future past future. But then the other futures where mutants have finally risen up and gotten what they deserve, but now humans are second class, which again goes against Charles Xavier's dream. And so for him to actually see these 2 different timelines, these 2 different futures, and realize that his dream was not achieved in any one of those futures, it really bothers him. And it kind of leaves us wondering, will he rejoin the school? Will he take back over, kick Magneto out, and try to train the new mutants better, to train the new X-Men team better, to make sure they're on their A game? And so then we dive into the final few pages for today's story, where we do pick up with our heroes being able to come together for the first time since the ending of the first chapter, except right after they were able to do that, well, that is the moment they are confronted by Magus. Now, when it comes to Magus, again, he is a techno-organic being. which still means that he is mostly technology, which means that you are able to hack into it. And so when it comes to our heroes, they were able to use Cypher's abilities to kind of make up a formula that will allow our heroes to attack or hack into Magus. Because remember, when it comes to Cypher, he has the ability to understand and speak any kind of language across the universe. And math is technically its own kind of language. And so for Cypher to sit down and understand math at a higher level, he was able to build up a formula that got uploaded into Magus as a way to shut him down. And so with that happening, our heroes have won the day. They can finally go back to Earth in the present day. But the big question is right now, will Charles Xavier return to Earth to lead the New Mutants, to lead his X-Men team? Because technically, even though the New Mutants were able to come together with the Starjammers to defeat Magus, it was still Charles there coaching them through every single step. But this is where we are going. And so getting back into our coverage over X-Men comics leading up to the Fall of the Mutant storyline, we do pick up with New Mutants number 51 and 52. Now, this two-part story arc really does focus more on Magneto possibly joining the Hellfire Club, but on top of that, answering a very important question. Will Charles Xavier come back to Earth to lead the X-Men, but to also become the headmaster of his school once again to teach the New Mutants? And the reason why that question is really important because at the end of our last video, Charles Xavier read the mind of Magma to get an idea of what was happening on Earth ever since he had left and joined the Starjammers. Now, because he only read the mind of Magma, he was unable to get a very clear picture of what was happening on Earth. But now because he has all the New Mutants there and he's being able to read all their minds, he has a better idea. The idea of the mutant massacre event happening. An evil group of mutants going out of their way to kill off other mutants for the heck of it. On top of that, you have different countries right now trying to make different laws as a way to get rid of mutants, or possibly find ways to depower mutants. But the biggest one that really did bother him the most was X Factor. Now let's not forget, when it came to X Factor, to the public, they believed that it was a group of humans who were going out of their way to help hunt down mutants to make human lives, a little bit easier. But in reality, X Factor is trying to help out mutants and get them out of tight situations and try to teach them how to control their powers and then put them back out there in society. But the problem is though, when it comes to the New Mutants, all they know is that, hey, we heard of X Factor and we heard there are really a group of characters who are hunting down mutants, and that's really it. And so when Charles reads the minds of the New Mutants, he finds out that X Factor is his original 5 students: Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Iceman, Angel. And so he's left to wonder why in the world X Factor is going after their own kind for. Now we know the real reason why, but for the public, the New Mutants and Charles Xavier, it's the idea that they're hunting down their own kind. And so now he's left to wonder, maybe he should go back to Earth to try to fix things for the mutant race. And this is a really big question because he joined the Starjammers, but he's also with Illyandra, his alien girlfriend, and she knows that most likely he will leave. And if he does, that means they will no longer be able to be with one another. And so we jump over to Magneto and also Storm. Now remember, around this time, the X-Men were currently at Muir Island because half their team got seriously injured in the mutant massacre event. Kitty Pryde, Colossus, and Nightcrawler. Now on top of that, Magneto is the headmaster of the school, meaning that he is the leader of the X-Men. And so when it comes to Magneto, he's kind of worried about the New Mutants because around this point he has no idea where they are. We do, but he doesn't. But he also is wondering if he should accept the offer that came from the Hellfire Club. They want Magneto to become the White King of the club. Now for Storm, she says yes. But this is such a huge deal. And the reason why, because around this time, the Hellfire Club was one of the most deadliest foes of the X-Men. And so you are talking about the idea of joining up with your enemies. But for Storm, she says, look on the bright side if you do. One, when it comes to the Hellfire Club, they have a lot of assets that we could use to kind of help us out, but also other mutants around the world. Two, if you do join, maybe you'll be a better teacher than Emma Frost when it comes to the Hellions, her own group of students. But finally, the idea of kind of adding more security to the mansion, to the school, because again, the Marauders are still out there and they might come back to the school to attack the X-Men. And so why not join the Hellfire Club to grab some extra money, but to also add extra defense to the school to protect the school? And so it's Storm bringing up a lot of good reasons why Magneto should join the Hellfire Club, but to also do a new game plan called Omega. And so now we jump back over to Charles Xavier and also the New Mutants and the Starjammers. Now remember, the reason why Charles Xavier is with the Starjammers because there was a point where he was seriously injured and they were able to save his life. And so because of that, he feels like he's in their debt. He's trying to pay back for what they have done for him. But now he's kind of wondering, should he go ahead and leave, go back to Earth, and help out the mutant race, or to make sure that his debt is paid? And so for him, it's kind of hard to decide until Magik happens. See, when it comes to Magik, she's kind of freaking out because for the New Mutants and Charles to get back home safely, they have to go into Limbo and use Limbo as a way to teleport back to Earth. But the problem is though, when it comes to Magik being the ruler of Limbo, when she does use too much of her magic powers in Limbo, it opens up the door to her dark side, something she wants to keep away. And so just hearing the idea of like, hey, you need to use Limbo to get everybody home, she's freaking out. Like, no, I don't want to do that. Now, also in Limbo, there's also a group of demons who are trying to technically get rid of her. They're trying to say, we don't need you as our leader. We have Sin who can be our leader. And so the idea of facing a war in Limbo, but to also say the dark side of her might come out, it's a lot to deal with. But you have Charles Xavier cross some lines. And what he does is that he tells Karma to use her powers to possess the body of Magik to bring her outside of her room. And once that is done, he tells her to use the powers of Magik to get everyone home, to make Magik open up a portal to lead to Limbo that will lead back to Earth. And that's crossing so many lines because a young girl just told Charles, hey, I don't want to use Limbo. I hate using Limbo. I'm scared of my dark side. And here goes Charles saying, I understand. Hey, Karma, use your powers on her to force her to do what I want y'all to do, which is go back home. And so it happens. Like literally it happens. Now for Charles, he tries to say that he is innocent only because the Starjammers are currently being attacked and he wants to protect his students. But again, you did cross some lines using one student on the other. Now, he does tell us, the readers, that he is not going back to Earth because, again, he owes so much to the Starjammers. And once they're out of danger and he feels like he paid his debt, then he'll go back to Earth to continue to help the mutant race against the human race. And so the New Mutants, they go back to Earth and Charles stays. Now, thanks to Charles Xavier, even though he was able to get his students back home, well, Magik is very upset because she told him, I don't want to use Limbo at all. And she was forced to. And so she is so upset, she goes back to Limbo, leaving us wondering what the heck she's going to do there. But she does tell our other heroes, once she does come back from Limbo, come back to Earth, she is going to attack the New Mutants. And we're left to wonder, will she actually do that? But getting back over to Magneto, we get confirmation that he has joined the Hellfire Club as the White King. Now here's the thing, because after he has joined, well, we learned the Black King, Sebastian Shaw, has something up his sleeve. He has something big planned down the road to do to Magneto. And he also is trying to use Magneto for his own personal reasons. But he's not the only one. We also kind of find out the Black Queen, Selene, she also has something up her sleeve as well. And she's hoping that Magneto and Sebastian will kill each other off so that she'll be able to pull off her plan. But either way, at the end of this chapter, Magneto is a member of the Hellfire Club. And so then we jump into New Mutants number 52. And when we do, we pick up with, of course, the New Mutants fighting against the Marauders. And you're probably wondering, hey Fresh, how in the world did we get to this point right here? Like, at the end of the last chapter, our heroes arrived on Earth and out of nowhere, they're fighting against the Marauders? Well, let me explain. This is a training session. Some time has passed by between the two chapters, and so Magneto came back home to find out the New Mutants are back. But now he wants to train them and teach them how to fight against the Marauders. And the reason why, because in the middle of the Mutant Massacre, when the X-Men came back with injured people, he told them, you guys need to stay here at the school. We have no idea who the Marauders are. Of course, the New Mutants did not listen because two of their friends went missing and they actually traveled through the sewers where the Mutant Massacre was happening at. Now, luckily for our young heroes, they were not confronted by the Marauders, but they could have been, and then could have been killed off. And that is Magneto's point. You guys were supposed to stay here at the school for your own protection. You guys went out of your own way to do your own thing, and you could have been killed. And so I want you guys to learn how powerful and how deadly the Marauders truly are. And there is another reason why, and the reason why because most of the New Mutants, they believe that they're on the level of the X-Men, especially Sunspot. He hates the idea of being known as the novice group, that they are a better group than that. They have been together for a while now to the point where they could be almost good as the X-Men. We know that is not true, but in their minds, their young minds, most of them kind of believe that. But for Magneto, no, that's not the case. You need to learn how to protect yourself if you're going to go against my rules and get yourselves into huge trouble. But getting back over to Magik, we see that she has left to Limbo. Well, matter of fact, she's still in Limbo. She never did come back. But with her being in Limbo, she's trying to fight against Sin and other demons who are trying to remove her. Because when it came to our previous video, Magus, the father to Warlock, was kind of able to take over Limbo. Matter of fact, spread his technovirus to all the different creatures of Limbo. And so because of that, you have these demons kind of half demonic, half cybernetic, and they're trying to remove her as their queen. But she's trying to regain control of this area. And matter of fact, the leader of the group that's trying to get rid of her is Sin, who used to be her right-hand man. But he's trying to get rid of her, like I said. And so the next few pages is her trying to stop him and regain control. But the problem is he just keeps coming back over and over again. Now we also get a reminder of what happened in the previous story arc. Remember, the New Mutants had traveled to two alternate timelines, to future alternate timelines where a lot of dark things had happened. And so when it comes to our heroes, they want to make sure that those two timelines never come to exist. And the question is, how? How can we change the timeline to make sure they don't come? And so when it comes to Dani Moonstar, she says, we just have to take life one day at a time to kind of figure out where we went wrong at, or what could have possibly be the reasons why that led into those two alternate futures. And so our heroes just gonna have to stay on their A game to make sure those two futures never come around. Now we pick up with Magneto, and when it comes to Magneto, he's very worried about being too harsh on the New Mutants, but at the same time, they did go against his rules. He told them to stay on campus. They didn't do that. And so he feels like, you know what, maybe he was a tad bit harsh when it came to the Danger Room training, but also grounding them to say you are no longer able to leave the school grounds. Now, that is when he is confronted by, of course, Karma. And when it comes to Karma, she's very worried about her brother and sister. And remember, when it came to the only chapter for the New Mutants and the Mutant Massacre storyline, the reason why the New Mutants went into the city was to look for Karma and also Magik, because they went to the city to look for Karma's missing brother and sister. But the problem is, we're now 7 issues later after the Mutant Massacre, and there's still no clue of where her brother and sister could possibly be yet. And so she's asking Magneto, can she leave? He says no, because he wants to protect her, but also he's working very hard to hopefully find them. But at the same time, she still doesn't listen. We can tell that she is plotting to sneak away to go try to find her siblings. And so you have the final part of today's video be more of Magneto sitting down with Magik. And honestly, I love this conversation so much because it's Magneto wanting her to realize that she's currently fighting her inner demons. She is scared of her dark side coming out. And he says, I get that. For many years, I was a bad guy. And only recently, I turned into a good guy. But the world still has me labeled as a bad guy. But sometimes I get urges to go back to my old ways, to go back to the days where I was an evil mutant. But when I think of those old days, it reminds me those ways were the wrong ways when it came to helping out the mutant race. That my new role is a better role to help out the mutant race. And so he tells Magik, what if you trying to fight against your dark side, your inner demons, can be really used more of a motivation to make sure you don't slip up, that you don't turn into that person that you are afraid to become, because you're trying to save Limbo. You're trying to get rid of the demons who are trying to get rid of you. You're trying to be the queen of Limbo again, but you are afraid of your dark side coming out. Well, why not use your inner demons to motivate yourself to make sure you do not become that person you are scared to become? And once she kind of realized what he is saying to her, just like that, she snaps out of her funk. She's kind of like, okay, he's right, and let me go back to my normal ways and make sure I don't slip up. And the book ends with her going outside to hang out with the rest of the New Mutants. But let's not forget, Magneto did join the Hellfire Club. But with that being said, what's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Alright, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we are covering the Fall of the Mutants era of X-Men comics. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Fall of the Mutants, it wasn't really a proper crossover. It wasn't like you had the X-Men crossing over with the X-Factor team, or X-Factor crossing over with New Mutants. each of the 3 X-Men teams were handling their own different kinds of problems. So X-Factor had Apocalypse. X-Men had the Adversary. You had different things going on for different teams. Now, like we did when it came to X-Factor and X-Men, we're going to cover some of the books for the New Mutants as we lead into what their part was when it comes to the Fall of the Mutant crossover. And so we're going to cover about 4 or 5 issues of books that kind of lead into their chapter in the Fall of the Mutants. Now, the first few pages for the New Mutants is really more of the New Mutants getting ready to go to a party. And the reason why, because Cannonball has a girlfriend known as Layla. Now, when it comes to Layla, she was kind of similar to Dazzler in some areas because she was also a rock star. The only difference is that when it came to Layla, she had the ability to teleport across the universe. And usually what she did was she created a field of energy around her. Anybody inside that field of energy would teleport alongside with her. But either way, over the years, she did use her powers for personal gain by going around to different planets and stealing different things to make some money, but also being a rock star back on Earth like Dazzler. Either way, when it comes to Layla, she invited the New Mutants to her big time party. And for Cannonball, this is a huge thing. You are talking about the idea of meeting your girlfriend's friend group, and you want to make sure you fit in, but you're also bringing your friends as well. You want to make sure they fit in as well. And so you have almost all the New Mutants getting dressed. You know, they're all dressing kind of different, and they tell Magneto that they are leaving. Guys, real quick, I love Magneto's face when he sees some of the outfits of the New Mutants because he's wondering, what in the world are you guys wearing? Now, when the New Mutants arrive at the party, they kind of freak out at first, really just Cannonball. Everyone else in the group is really relaxed and trying to have a good time. Now, when our heroes walk inside the party, they do see another fellow kind of getting into an argument with Layla. Now, when it comes to this argument, we do learn very quickly that this guy and his group of friends are really aliens, and apparently they want Layla to do something for them. Now, the way we actually do learn all of this is that when you have Layla tell this guy, hey, leave me alone and stay with your friends, when she walks away, he goes and talks to the rest of his group in their alien tongue. But Cypher, who's one of the New Mutants, had the ability to understand almost any language across the board, to kind of realize that those aliens right there wanted Layla to do something for them, but she said no. But also, it seems like they're very upset with Cannonball. And so now they're going to possibly try to do something to Cannonball to remove him to have Layla accomplish their task. And so you then have one of the aliens release small pellets on the ground. Now, these small pellets, they do make Cannonball collapse right in front of Layla, which is embarrassing because they were just dancing and having a good time. And so you have Cannonball leave the dance floor to gather himself. But that is when he is confronted by another member of the alien group who begins to talk to Cannonball in a way of saying, look at you, dude. You have Layla, one of the hottest people in the party right now, and you just embarrass yourself right in front of her by collapsing like that. So you know what? You need to go back out there and show her who you are. You need to win the battle against other men who are also trying to get at her as well. And so you have one of the aliens give Cannonball some pills by saying the pills will make him feel a whole lot stronger and put some courage inside of him as well. And so he does take the pills believing what they are going to do. But in reality, the pills do the exact opposite. As soon as he does get out on a dance floor, he begins to hallucinate. He begins to get very drowsy to the point where he has to walk off the dance floor again to get some fresh air. He goes to a nearby balcony, and now the aliens can begin their next step of their plan. Now, luckily for Cannonball, on his way over to the balcony and with the aliens following him, well, Cypher and also Wolfbane were nearby. And they kind of realized, hey, it looks like Cannonball has been drugged. But on top of that, it looks like he's being followed by those aliens. And so they want to make sure that he is okay. Except when they get to the balcony, well, Cannonball is being flown away with the aliens to an unknown location. And so while you have the aliens taking Cannonball somewhere else in the city, he does wake up and begins to use his powers as a way to get away. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Cannonball, when he does use his powers to shoot himself like a rocket all over the area, he's very durable, very hard to bring down. But at the same time, he still has been drugged, and the drugs are still working through his system to the point where he's unable to continue on for a very long time when it comes to using his powers. But while using his powers, he does run through a certain tower in the city. Now that tower right there is going to be important in the next chapter. But either way, you have Cannonball trying his best to get away from these guys. And so the rest of the chapter is really more of the rest of the team realizing that Cannonball needs their help. And so with the powers of Magik, they were able to teleport right over to where Cannonball and the group of aliens were at. Now, as soon as they arrive, they are able to easily defeat the group of aliens. And you didn't have Dani Moonstar use her abilities to read the minds of the aliens and pull out an image to see why in the world they came to Earth and why they wanted Lila so badly. And we kind of find out because Lila was a great thief in her past, they wanted her to use her abilities again to steal a special set of jewels, but she said no earlier. And so this was them trying to find a different way to make her do the job, but they failed. And so with them failing, you didn't have Magik say, you know what, you guys deserve to go to Limbo for a short period of time to learn a lesson. And once you have learned that lesson, maybe I'll let you out of Limbo. And so that wraps up the first chapter. Now, at first, this chapter may seem not really that important, but it does for other chapters down the road, especially the moment where you had Cannonball run into that tower earlier. Now, when we jump into New Mutants number 56, we kind of begin a new story. But one particular part from the last chapter will play a major role in this story. And so we do pick up the New Mutants having breakfast. Now, while they're eating, they're discussing what happened at the party. And for the ladies, they're talking about the men at the party that they were at. But then it all comes down to Magma. Who's on her mind right now? Who could be her crush? Now, when it comes to Dani Moonstar, she's able to read your mind, but able to take what she sees in your mind and project an image of what you're actually thinking. And so when it comes to Magma, she is thinking of a character known as Empath. Now, Empath is part of a team known as the Hellions, and they were just the evil version of the New Mutants, and they're being led by Emma Frost at her school. But either way, when it comes to Magma, she gets very upset with what Dani Moonstar did by showing everyone at the table who is her crush. It is Empath. Now, there is another reason why Magma is very upset, and the reason belongs to her father. See, when it comes to Magma, she comes from a country known as Nova Roma. In that country, I want to say she was the princess of the country. But either way, her dad technically did send her away so that she is able to learn more about her mutant ability. But recently, she had received a letter saying, hey, it's time for you to come back home. Come back home and, begin the next generation. You heard that right. Her father wants her to get married and have a child. And for Magma, that is not okay for her father to ask. But at the same time, she does not feel like she fits in with the New Mutants either. And so she's kind of wondering where does she belong, but she's also thinking about Empath. Now we do jump over to the Hellions. Now when it comes to the Hellions, they're just eating breakfast at the Hellfire Club in New York. Now with Emma Frost being their teacher, she's also part of the Hellfire Club, so it makes a lot of sense on why they're there at the Hellfire Club. But while being there, they're watching the news while they're eating their breakfast. And they come to find out that Bird Boy, a new character, has been released from his prison thanks to Cannonball. And so when they're watching the news and they see Cannonball literally destroying the tower in the last chapter that had released Bird Boy, they believe that the New Mutants want Bird Boy for their own personal reasons. And for the Hellions, they cannot allow that. And so they get dressed to leave and to hopefully find Bird Boy before the New Mutants do. Now on their way out, you also have Emma Frost stopping them to talk to Impact about the idea of beginning the process of her hidden plan. Now, when we jump back over to the New Mutants, they're also watching the news as well, and they realize what Cannonball did, which Bird Boy being released, they're kind of like, okay, we have to go find him. It's our fault that he's out there, but at the same time, it's the New Mutants thinking that Bird Boy could possibly be a mutant, and so they want to go out of their way to help him. Now, while the team is getting ready, you have Magma still very upset with Danny Moonstar. Matter of fact, she does not want to go on this mission at all, but at the same time, she still has to because this is her team, and she wants to make sure they are okay when they go on this mission. Now, when it comes to Bird Boy, I'm going to tell you right off the bat that he is not really a mutant at all. He's a different kind of being. As a matter of fact, we'll talk more about him later on. But when it comes to the New Mutants and also the Hellions, they both arrive at the scene at the same time, which means you're going to have both teams fighting against each other to have the chance to hopefully get Bird Boy. And so the battle does last for a few pages, and you have both teams beginning to use their powers in different kinds of ways to help them win this small war for Bird Boy. But then you have the New Mutants realize there is a way to actually win. If Bird Boy is a bird, that means he likes fish. So why not go out of our way to collect a huge amount of fish and then bring them over to Bird Boy to then trap him and bring him back to the school? Because our heroes still believe that Bird Boy is a mutant, but I'm telling you now, he's not. And so as the fight goes on, it does get to the point where you have a standoff. See, you had Danny Moonstar and also Magma riding their Pegasus, but there was an incident where they both crash landed with some of the Hellions. Now the Hellions, they're holding on to Danny Moonstar. Now it's not very clear on what the Hellions are going to do with Danny Moonstar, but Magma is very concerned for her safety, and she's unconscious right now. So Magma really can't wake up Danny to help her get away from the Hellions. Now, I know I said earlier that when it came to Magma, she has a crush on Empath, but Empath also has a crush on Magma, and he realized that Magma really does care a lot for Danny Moonstar, and this is a woman that he does care for. He wants to make sure that he still has a chance to get with her. So why crush the chance to just help his team win against her team? And so what he does, he uses his abilities as an empath to make his team members feel differently when it comes to Danny Moonstar, to let her go and hand her over to Magma. But the rest of the team realize the only reason why he did that is because he has some kind of feelings for Magma. And so you have Magma being able to grab Danny Moonstar, but then you have Magik appear with a pile of fishes to trick Bird Boy to come towards them, and the New Mutants are able to teleport back home to their school. Now, when the New Mutants arrive back at their school, they do arrive in the Danger Room, and they're able to use the Danger Room to change how the area looks to make Bird Boy feel more at home. Now, that leads into Danny Moonstar finally apologizing for what she did earlier to Magma. And you have Magma forgive her, but you didn't have Magma saying, After, a short while here of me thinking, I kind of realized that I don't want to stay here anymore, but I don't want to go home either. And so I'm going to transfer over to, and guys, I am going to mispronounce the state name, please forgive me, but you have Magma saying, I'm going to transfer over to the Massachusetts Academy to be part of Emma Frost School to possibly be close to Empath. And so as we dive into the third chapter, well, we pick up with the New Mutants still not telling Magneto about Bird Boy, who is currently in the danger room. And so you have Magneto being the teacher of the school, the headmaster of the school, saying, you guys need to go to danger room and properly learn how to use your powers. Yes, you have gotten better, but there's always room for improvement. So let's go ahead and head down there right now. And the New Mutants, they're trying their best to distract him or change his mind, but unfortunately, he still goes down to the danger room. Now, when they arrive, he realized they left on the environment system for the danger room because, again, they were trying to make Bird Boy feel at home. And so as soon as Magneto turns it off, Bird Boy begins to freak out because he's wondering, where in the world am I? The entire room looks like metal. And so you have the New Mutants having to teleport inside the danger room to hopefully calm down Bird Boy. Now, after a while, they're able to do that. But then you have Magneto kind of looking like, hey, is somebody going to tell me who in the world is Bird Boy? And so that leads into the New Mutants telling Magneto, hey, this is Bird Boy. And the reason why he is here because we believe that he's actually a mutant. Now, when it comes to Magneto, he does use Cerebro to kind of get a better read on Bird Boy. And after using Cerebro, he tells the team, well, he's not human, but unfortunately, Cerebro can't really tell if he is a mutant or some kind of other being. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wait. So Bird Boy gets the chance to stay for the time being. And so while you have Magneto doing that, you have the New Mutants get back to studying for their midterms. You also have Wolfbane beginning to build a bond with Bird Boy. Now, she does go out of her way to ask Cypher to use his ability to try to communicate with Bird Boy. But this is where we kind of see that Bird Boy is kind of making Cypher a tad bit jealous. That Cypher is realizing that Bird Boy is getting all the attention from Wolfsbane, and that is not okay at all. And so when she asks him, hey, use your abilities and try to see if you're able to communicate with him, he says no, and they actually get into a small argument. But either way, you have Bird Boy and also Wolfbane walk away. Now, when it comes to the New Mutants, they also have other problems besides Bird Boy. The idea of Magma actually transferring over to Emma Frost School. It's the big day. She's leaving with Emma Frost. Now, for Magma, she's saying, listen, it was my job to come here and learn from the New Mutants, to learn from Charles Xavier and other people. But to possibly learn more about this world, I have to learn from other groups like the Hellions and Emma Frost. And so she leaves. Now, you do have Emma Frost kind of hint at the idea of the possibility of some of the Hellions actually coming to Charles Xavier School down the road. Possibly. But still, this is Magma officially leaving the New Mutants. And it really does bother the New Mutants a lot, but also Magneto. Now, when it comes to Magneto, he feels like he failed as a teacher because it was his goal to kind of make sure that everyone is okay at the school. But here we go with Magma. He feels like if he tried a tad bit harder with her, maybe she would not left to go to Emma Frost School, but she still did. And so you have the New Mutants realize that Magneto is just kind of feeling down about her leaving. And so their goal is to cheer themselves up and hoping with them being happy, he'll be happy. But getting back to Bird Boy, you didn't have the team think of the idea of, okay, if Bird Boy is possibly a human or possibly a mutant, well, that means he should do some human or mutant activities like going to the mall, getting some food, or possibly going to the movies. And so they give Bird Boy a disguise and they use the powers of Magik to teleport over to the nearby mall to see if maybe these different kinds of human activities will do some good for Bird Boy. It doesn't, because as soon as they go over to a restaurant and they order a bunch of food, Bird Boy begins to freak out. Not in a bad way. Well, yes, in a bad way, because he does go crazy all over every single person's food, but it's causing a scene at the restaurant to the point where they have no choice but to leave. But as they are leaving, you do have Cypher pay for all the damages, but Bird Boy went ham on every single person's meal to show that Homeboy can truly eat. And so their next goal is to take him to the movies. But before they are able to go to the movies, well, they realize that when it comes to the way he is dressed and the way he is looked, Bird Boy is causing a huge scene in the middle of the mall. Different people are beginning to question him. And so you have our heroes realize they have to go back home, like right now. And so they realize that they can't do it just right here in the open. They have to go somewhere where no one can see them teleporting back home to the school. And they realize the best option would be the movies. It's really dark in there. Here comes the problem, because as soon as they walk inside the movie is playing and it caused Bird Boy to freak out. And so you have our heroes once again using their powers in this dark theater room to hopefully grab Bird Boy and to be able to teleport back home to the school. Except when they get back to the school, Magneto is there and he's very upset because he got word from the mall about how his students had technically destroyed a table at the restaurant. Really, it was Bird Boy, but still, the New Mutants were involved. And so he was very upset about the idea that one, they're not studying for their midterms, but two, they took Bird Boy out of here and he caused a scene at the mall, which could bring more pressure on the actual school. And so you have Magneto saying, we are going to go ahead and call the police to have him removed from our school, because there's no way that he can stay here because he's not human. He's something, but he's not human. And so you have Wolfman and other members of the New Mutants being very upset about the idea of him possibly leaving, until you didn't have Cypher use his ability to actually communicate with Bird Boy. Now, when he does that, Cypher realized why Bird Boy acted the way he did at the restaurant, because the way he was trained by people that had created him. He said to Cypher that when it comes to having food, that means that he was good. When there was no food, that means he was being bad. And so when he saw all that food in front of him, he's all like, oh, I've been really good. And so he assumed all the food was for him. And so now with the New Mutants having a way to communicate with Bird Boy, there is a chance where they could possibly train him so that they can keep him. Now, when we jump into the final chapter for today's video, we pick up with the New Mutants beginning to use the abilities of Cypher to teach Bird Boy how to actually speak. Now, at first, he does struggle because you're talking about the idea of a person, or this could be a person that's half human, half bird, and most likely has a bird brain. But you do have Cypher being able to actually teach Bird Boy some words as a way to communicate with the actual team. Now, as time passes by, you have Bird Boy look outside and he realizes it's nighttime and he wants to leave. But you have the New Mutants not allowing him to leave, but they're wondering, why does he want to leave so bad? What's out there? Where is he trying to go? And so they didn't try to use TV as a way to keep Bird Boy distracted long enough so that one, they could go back to studying, but two, hoping that maybe watching Sesame Street, will actually teach him some words that he can use to help communicate with the team. But while you have the show continue on, they show a tiger. Now, for some reason, Bird Boy begins to freak out and wants to actually attack the TV. But luckily, our heroes were able to step in his way and stop him again. But this is another example of something deep is going on in the mind of Bird Boy. But the question is right now, what? Why is he acting this way in the first place? And so they change the channel, and when they do, a commercial comes on talking about food, and you have Bird Boy being able to say the words of hamburger, fries, things like that, to say, hey, I want that right now. I want some food. And so you have Magik being able to, use her powers to teleport over to a restaurant, grab some food, and bring it back to Bird Boy. But it really shows that he is improving when it comes to using certain words. And so then you have the team want to sit down with one another to hopefully figure out, where did Bird Boy come from? Because honestly, that could kind of help understand the character a tad bit more. Now, they do show him different maps to see if he has an idea where he is from, and right off the bat he says, okay, you know what, I think I came from somewhere in Greenland or somewhere nearby it. Now, they're also going off the information from the reports that talked about Bird Boy before he was put in that tower that Cannonball broke earlier in the storyline. And so with those reports, but also the way Bird Boy's acting to different kinds of maps, they kind of got an idea of like, okay, somewhere off the coast of Greenland is where he is from. Now, we also find out that anytime he sees a picture of a zoo, he begins to freak out even more. And that gives our heroes a tad bit more of information to work with. Now, time passes by, and once again, it's nighttime. But you have Bird Boy beginning to freak out when he looks outside and sees the moon. And with him seeing the moon, he just goes crazy and busts right out the window, flying away. Now, the New Mutants, they heard the noise. When they run into his room, they realize it's too late, he's gone, but they have no idea where in the world he is going. Now, we get the chance to follow Bird Boy, and we see him go right over to a nearby burger shop to buy a bunch of burgers and drinks and shakes as well. Now, we have no idea what he is trying to do with all these different kind of items, but apparently he's in a hurry. And so once you have Burger Shop stop freaking out and give the Bird Boy everything he wants, he flies away to his next location. Now, our heroes are able to catch up to him and actually stop him. But again, they're wondering, where were you going? Why are you trying to fly away? And so you have Dani Moonstar being able to use her powers to connect her mind to his mind and to pull out images to see what he is thinking about. And we kind of find out he is worried about his friends. Not the New Mutants, but the friends he had at the lab that apparently he had escaped from. Because he says, listen, if they were not acting right in the eyes of the person in charge of the lab, they didn't get any food. But also the testing was very brutal. And so you have Bird Boy trying to go back to the island to feed his friends. That was his goal. But the problem is, Homeboy's in New York. His friends are back near an island near Greenland. And so you have our heroes realize that it's possibly best for them to go ahead and help out Bird Boy to help his friends. And so you have Magik use her abilities to teleport the team right over to the island that they were able to see in the mind of Bird Boy. Except when they do arrive, they are surrounded by a bunch of creatures. And this leads us into the New Mutants chapter of Fall of the Mutants, which should be very interesting. But with that being said, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later. What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. All right, so we are going to continue our coverage over the fall of the mutants. And matter of fact, this is going to be our last video for this era of X-Men comics. Because remember, when it came to fall of the mutants, it wasn't really a proper crossover. You didn't have all the different X-Men teams crossing over in each other's books. Instead, each X-Men team had to face their own certain kinds of problems. So when it came to X-Factor, they had to deal with Apocalypse. When it came to the X-Men, well, they had to deal with Adversary. But when it came to the New Mutants, well, they're going to have their own particular problem. Now, when it came to the fall of the mutants, every single storyline ended on a good note, with X-Factor getting a lot of love for defeating Apocalypse, the X-Men having the ability to now hide in the shadows. But when it comes to the New Mutants, the idea of the fall of the mutants really hit this title really hard, because by the end of the storyline, one of their team members is going to die. Now, the last time we saw our heroes, well, they met a new character known as Bird Boy. Now, when it came to Bird Boy, at first, we were left to believe if he was actually a mutant or a human, to only find out that he's only half human, half animal. We also learned that he came from an island, and on this secret island there is a laboratory where there was him and other kind of creatures being tested on left and right, day in and day out. And a lot of times they were tortured in that laboratory. And so when it came to our heroes, once they had learned that Bird Boy had other friends who were just like him, half human, half animal, they agreed to help him free his friends who are still being held on that island. Except when they had arrived on that island, well, they were surrounded by different kind of creatures that had lived on that island, but unfortunately, they don't know that they are surrounded. They don't know they are being watched. And so while you have our heroes walking around the island, well, that is when we come to find out who the island belongs to, a character known as the Animator. Now, when it comes to this character, he's also the one who had created these half animal, half human creatures. But the way he acts towards them, you can tell he only looks at them as slaves to help him accomplish different kinds of tasks or different kinds of experiments. But when it comes to him, we also learn that he is working for the right. Now remember, the right is a group of humans that had came together and being led by a character known as Cameron Hodge, and their main goal is to get rid of the mutant race. And so it seems he was hired to help them achieve that goal, except we have no idea how yet, or what is his game plan to help out the right to achieve that goal. Now, when it comes to the Animator, even though he does work for the right, his main goal is to finish his experiments. But he's also intrigued to learn why in the world the New Mutants are on his island. But getting back over to our heroes, as they are walking around the island, they are then confronted by more creatures who are very similar to Bird Boy. And when it came to Bird Boy, when he was able to escape, he gave them hope in the idea that they will also find ways to escape. Except with him coming back here and bringing humans, they are beginning to hate him. And the only reason why, because of them, the only human they know is the doctor who has been torturing them day in and day out. And so even though Bird Boy came back with help, they look like humans. And they believe that these humans are also there to torture them as well. Except you didn't have our heroes try their best to explain that no, they're on their side. They want to help these creatures escape this island and have a somewhat normal life. But we have to jump back over to the school of Charles Xavier, where we do pick up with Sunspot and Warlock coming back to the school. Now, there was a period of time these two characters actually left the team and kind of formed a different team in their own separate book, but of course came back when that series had wrapped up. Now, as soon as they arrived, they set off all the alarms at the school because it's nighttime. And so they were confronted by Magneto. Now, once you have Magneto realize it's just Sunspot and Warlock and they're coming back home, he's very happy. But then he realized the rest of the team did not wake up when the alarms went off, which means they're not at the school. But getting back over to our heroes, while they are talking to Bird Boy and other creatures who are just like him, well, then the alarms go off. Now, these alarms are technically being used to put these creatures in some kind of trance, to make them go through something known as the maze. If they are able to accomplish the maze, 1, they'll get the chance to live. 2, they'll get food. And 3, they'll get their own kind of promotion into another group of creatures. But again, as soon as those alarms go off, every single creature in the area begins to enter the maze. And you have our heroes go alongside with Bird Boy, who is also in a trance. But their goal is to hopefully accomplish the maze, find the leader of the island, and stop that person and free the creatures. But while they're going through the maze, they see how hard it is, but also they're finding dead bodies of other creatures who are very similar to Bird Boy to kind of show what is happening here. Now, while you have our heroes walking around this actual maze, they're then confronted by more creatures, but these creatures are way bigger, but also these are creatures who are really down for working for the animator. And so for our heroes, they have no choice but to fight against these creatures. But the problem is these creatures are very well trained and also very strong. And on top of that, you have some characters who really can't do much when it comes to fighting against creatures like this. And so, unfortunately, our heroes lose. And they also get captured by these creatures who are working for the animator. And he tells them, take them over to the next room. Now, once you have our heroes wake up and are being confronted by the animator, this is also where we kind of see his real hatred towards these animals, or half human, half animal hybrids that he had created. Because as soon as you have the New Mutants mentioned, they gave Bird Boy a name, he gets very upset by saying, you are an animal. You are not a man. You do not deserve the right to have friends. You do not deserve the right to have a name. I don't know why you think you should, but you shouldn't. And it kind of shows that same hatred goes over towards our heroes because they are mutants as well. Because to him, they're not humans. They're not man. They're mutants. They're just like animals. And so to him, they're also people or creatures that do not deserve a name, do not deserve the right to be called human, do not deserve the right to live like a man or a woman. And that kind of shows what kind of character he is. Now, the opening pages of the second chapter gives us a tad bit more information about this character. We kind of find out that he is scared of Cameron Hodge. Now, Cameron is the leader of the Right, the same group that hired this man to work on a project to make sure that the mutant race is not able to survive, not able to grow. Matter of fact, find a way to stop the idea of more mutants being brought into this world, but to also make sure that humans are able to survive and still be the bigger race, the first class race. But either way, we kind of find out he's not working on that assignment. He took the money of the Right, he took the money of Cameron and began to work on his own experiments. And that is a huge problem because Dani Moonstar, one of the New Mutants, she has the ability to connect her mind to someone else's mind, to pull out your worst fears and project that worst fear as an image for everybody to see. And so she pulled out the worst fear of the animator and realized he's scared of Cameron Hodge finding out that he is not doing what he was assigned to do. Now, there is one character I do want to focus on, and that would be Rain Sinclair, better known as Wolfbane. And the reason why, because when it comes to Wolfbane, she was raised 14 years by her father in a very serious Catholic household. Now, before her powers had manifested, he was already harsh on her. But once her powers came out and she was able to turn into a werewolf, he looked at her as some kind of work done by the devil, sent by the devil, and he began to hate his daughter even more, and basically calling her a body full of evil, even though she is a great person. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up because Doug, aka Cypher, who has the ability to communicate with almost anybody or anything in the universe, he began to talk to the other creatures that were created by the animator. Now, those creatures began to talk very rudely about Wolfbane, and so you have Doug try to protect her, but he gets smacked right in the face. And then you have Wolfbane get upset and turn to her wolf form and try to attack those creatures. Except she stopped very quickly. But once she stopped, she begins to think that maybe she truly is evil. That maybe she's only an animal. Because all animals have some kind of lust inside of them. And so because she reacted the way she did when Doug got hit, she now is beginning to believe that maybe she is just an animal, but an evil animal, like her father had called her many years ago. Getting back over to the school of Charles Xavier, we do pick up with Magneto. And you have Magneto, getting very concerned about his students, wondering where in the world are they? And so he leaves to go over to the Hellfire Club, because around this time he had joined the club as the White King as a way to help get funding to protect the school from different kind of enemies like the Marauders. And so he's the White King over there, and he feels like with the idea of being part of the actual group, he should be able to use their tech to find his students. And so he leaves. But you do have Sunspot and Warlock finding the clues that were left behind by the rest of the team and realize where the team is actually at. And so they head over there. Now, we do jump over to the animator in the island once again. And when we do, we really focus more on the animator here because we do learn what is his actual end goal. We kind of find out that yes, he was hired by the Right and also Cameron Hodge to find a way to hurt the mutant race, to make sure they are not able to outgrow the human race, to make sure that no more mutants are being brought into this world. Except he took the Right's money and began to do his own kind of experiments, these human hybrid creatures. But his end goal is to sell these creatures off to different countries around the world, because he realized that when it comes to humans, we are able to accomplish a lot of great things, but there are still some things out there that we are not able to accomplish because of different kinds of reasons. But that is where his creation comes in, these hybrids. Yes, they are animals, but they think like humans. And so they're able to use their animal abilities to help regular humans accomplish more great things across the world. And so his goal is to take his creation and begin to sell it to different countries around the world. Now, anytime Cameron calls up, you have the animator tell Cameron a huge fat lie about what he is truly working on. And his last phone call, it has Cameron realize that the animator is doing something, has something up his sleeve. And so you have Cameron tell his plane to go ahead and head over to the island because he wants to make sure that his investment is going in the right way. Now, right after the call had ended, some time does pass by, and you do have the New Mutants being able to break free. Now, you would think, okay, this is their chance to finally take down the animator, free all these creatures, and then finally go back home. Except, right when it seems like they are about to win, Cameron Hodge and the Right appear. And he's able to tell his soldiers to take out the New Mutants, which they do, very easily. And then he is able to realize that all his money was going to waste when it came to hiring the animator to accomplish his certain goals. Now, this leads us into what I said at the very beginning of our video, that somebody is going to die. So when it came to Cameron Hodge, he does take our heroes as hostages and begin the process of putting those characters onto his plane and about to take them back over to his new base somewhere in the world. Except Bird Boy and other creatures who work alongside Bird Boy begin the process of helping to free the New Mutants from Cameron Hodge containers. And so now our heroes are able to fight against him and his soldiers and hopefully be able to defeat them to finally be free. But like I said, this is where you have somebody going to die. See, when it came to Wolfbane, she almost got shot by the animator, who also broke free from being a hostage from the right. And he had a gun in his hand, and his main goal was to shoot Wolfbane, because he looked at Wolfbane as an animal, not as a human. But on top of that, because she also is a mutant. And so right when he pulls the trigger and it looks like Wolfbane is about to die, well, you have Cypher jump in front of the bullet, taking the bullet, and of course begin to bleed out. And so then you have our heroes continue to fight against the right and now realize that one of their own has been shot. Now, when it comes to Cameron, he realized that he is losing this battle, and he's already upset because back in X Factor comics, New York was attacked by Apocalypse, and his base out there was also attacked by Apocalypse. Not really attacked by Apocalypse, his aircraft just crashed into the actual building. But either way, he's still very upset about losing his base, but now this project is also a failure. But he does try to leave the island, except one of the sea creatures that is half creature, half human, grabs the plane and bring it right down into the ocean, and it blows up. And so we're left to believe that Cameron Hodge is dead. If that's the case, the right no longer has their leader. Now, once our heroes realize the day is over and they can finally relax, well, they look over and they see that Doug has been shot. And by the time they get to him, Doug is dead. Now, as we dive into the final chapter for today's video, I really want to focus on Magik here for a brief moment. See, when it comes to Magik, she had a huge connection to Limbo because there was a period of time of her life where she was raised in Limbo. Now, thanks to different storylines over time in X-Men comics, we had learned that she had a darker side to herself, better known as the Dark Child. Now, the Dark Child form is kind of like this demonic form that she was given to her thanks to her having connection to Limbo. Now, the thing is, she was kind of able to lock away that form, but her fear is that she might turn into that darker version of herself. And so when it comes to Doug's death, she begins to go crazy and begins to attack different members of the right that was still on the island after the battle was completely over. And so when it comes to Magik, she takes that member over into Limbo to have him be tortured by her demons. But then when she comes back to Earth, she still looks like her Dark Child form. Now, she does turn back to normal, but it kind of shows that Doug's death is bringing out the worst in the rest of his team. Now, when our heroes arrive back home, they wonder, where is Magneto? Now, when it comes to Magneto, he went over to the Hellfire Club to use their resources to hopefully find the New Mutants. Except when he arrived there, well, he finds the place has been almost completely wrecked. And the reason why? Because what happened between Apocalypse and X Factor. And matter of fact, you have the other members of the Hellfire Club show Magneto the footage of the fight. And that is when he realized that he knows some of the members of X Factor. Now, let's not forget, because when it came to X Factor, they were a team that was going around pretending to be a group of humans who were going out of their way to hunt down mutants to help out the human race. But in reality, they were trying to help those mutants and try to train them so that they're able to control their powers. When it comes to Magneto, he only knows the first part, the idea that they're human hunters. And so he's wondering why these old people that he used to fight against, like Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, and the list goes on, are helping out X-Factor. But he's also seeing what's happening with the X-Men. And let's not forget, at the end of the X-Men Fall of the Mutant chapters, well, the world believes that X-Men had died when it came to fighting against the adversary, but in reality, they had survived. But when we jump over to the New Mutants back at home at the X-Mansion, you're still having these characters dealing with the death of Doug, which honestly makes sense because Doug only died recently, but they're now beginning to blame themselves in different kinds of ways, wondering if they did things differently, would Doug be here at the moment instead of being dead? Now, when it comes to our heroes, they're also beginning to realize that they're going to need each other if they're going to overcome the death of Doug, because this is just too much to handle on their own. They need to support each other to get over this. And honestly, it's going to be a while until they are able to actually handle something like this. Now, this leads into a big moment for Magneto, because when it came to Magneto, when he found out the New Mutants were back at home, he was very happy, except when he walked in and realized that one of the members of the New Mutant, Cypher, is now dead, he goes into complete rage mode, getting very upset about what happened to Doug. Because when it comes to Magneto, even though he had turned into a good guy and trying to become a great headmaster at Charles Xavier School, he still has some hard feelings towards the human race. And so to find out a human had shot and killed off Doug, it really ticked him off a lot. But at the same time, he's still angry at the New Mutants because the New Mutants were supposed to stay at home, study for their midterms, except they went out of their way to help out this one group of creatures to give them freedom, and now one of their own is dead. And so Magneto is at the point of saying, you guys are not allowed to leave, because every single time I tell you guys to stay here, do not get into any kind of trouble, you leave and get yourselves in some kind of trouble. And guess what happened? Someone died this time, and now I have to call his parents, inform his parents that their son is now dead. How I failed as a teacher, how I failed as his protector. And Magneto is just ripping them a new one because he is just so angry. But then Magik gets angry as well. The reason why she gets angry because let's not forget, a while back when she was having a hard time dealing with the idea that she may have a darker side to herself, the Dark Child, well, Magneto was there to kind of help her work through those problems and bring her back over to the good side. And so she looked at Magneto as her shining knight armor to now see him as this angry man who is punishing her for something she did wrong, even though it was their fault that their team member had died. But because they're still so angry because of what happened to Doug, and now you have Magneto just adding on his anger, she snaps and she begins to try to attack him. Now, luckily, she does calm down, but in the middle of that attack, you begin to see her Dark Child form coming out very slowly. And then you have her disappear to go hide in the attic. But that really shows that right now Magneto no longer has that bond with his students. But on top of that, he lost one of his students. But to go ahead and wrap up today's video, when we do see the New Mutants in the attic of the X-Mansion, they do find some old clothes to kind of make some new costumes for themselves. But Here's the thing, because you have the New Mutants like the rest of the world believing that the X-Men are currently dead, even though they are not. And so it's the New Mutants saying, we are not Magneto students. We were Charles Xavier students. But now with the X-Men gone, it's now time for us to step up and take their place and fight against other evil mutants across the world to help protect mutants, but to also protect the human race as well, to help achieve Xavier's goal. And so now the New Mutants are trying to become their own, big time superhero team. But the question is, will Magneto step in their way? And is the end for today's video. So with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.